Brian, will you lead us, please?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Roll call. Here.
Roll call.
Here.
Roll. Mitch Dowell.
Here.
Brett DeRoche. Brett DeRoche.
Here.
Brian Morris.
Here.
McGee Rowe.
Here.
Martin Davis.
Here.
Supervisor Leon.
Thank you, Mayor. Looking for a motion to approve the minutes of the meeting of August 14th. Moved by Matt, second by Mr. Ronald. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Okay, on the president's report, what I have is happy to be back in our office after a long time. Looks like our guys did a really good job. And Brett, please pass on our gratitude to Kurt and the family for allowing us to operate out of his office for these last 2 years.
Should ride with that, huh?
Yeah, we should, we'll send some.
Draw something up.
Just have a chance to,
Signed by all members.
That helped out a lot.
Some we can put up on the wall if you want to.
We'll do it for
Or
next
throw it in the garbage can.
Okay, let's see, the executive committee report. Mr. Rock.
Okay, we met last Tuesday, because they were there on Monday, and we got 14 items we discussed, so it might be a while with the minutes. First of all, Mr. Robert Terrio addressed us. We received a letter from Senator Feasy saying we had to name two recommendations for a member of the Board of Commissioners to replace Mr. Rowland. We received a quote from Rev for audio and video equipment. Mr. McBurney said he will have to get at least one more quote. Regional Freshwater Management Committee update. McLaren informed the committee that working group has been formed to keep Lafourche Levee District, Capital Levee District, North Lafourche Levee District, Capital Parish, Lafourche Parish, and Bayou Lafourche Freshwater District to collectively manage freshwater from the Mississippi River into the Bayou Lafourche and down. Mr. McLaren advised that no action is required for the board at this time, but the North Lafourche Levee District attorney is working with Lafourche language for the cooperative endeavor agreement to be reviewed by each organization's legal counsel in the near future. We're also reminded of the next Mississippi Valley meeting in Thibodeau was returned and McKeith will be attending. We discussed the on-call pay for supervisory release, which I'm sure was discussed on the agenda over here. We received a letter from Senator John Kennedy that he submitted a recommendation for language to include the name water-rich word and development anticipated in 2024. His recommendation includes conducting a forensic analysis of the Lafourche to Golden Levee system as constructed by South Lafourche Levee District to determine whether the current levee design standards required by the Corps can be revised given the success of our system during Hurricane Ida, and might have been through the one before Ida a couple of years ago. This would also be an opportunity to more quickly have the Lafourche to Golden Levee system reinvented into the core rehabilitation and inspection program. It would probably use us as the poster child for future level work. It would be great. Also, the burn translation was discussed. Section F burn, and Mr. McLaren advised that we took a recommendation to award the full project in light of additional state funding which is made available. Crawfish Wall, Fall Flood Wall, Phase 3, and moving forward design construction. Also, stockpiling quotes. Mr. McLaren discussed the stockpiling of material on Section G North from the Aviation Borrow Pool. We recommend use some federal funds rather than state funds so the material can be used on any needed project rather than only a state funded project. That is dirt that's available right now with the stockpile for future use, using our own equipment. Mr. McLaren presented his recommendation amendment to the currently adopted budget of the Lafourche levy district, which will be reviewed in finance. Equipment replacement, he informed us the committee has a number of pieces of equipment that would likely need to be either repaired or replaced soon, and recommend that the executive committee be called to assess equipment needs and any necessary budget arrangement. I agree with that, Chairman, I would agree, and I would be coordinating with Mr. Bithern on scheduling the meeting. Also, we discussed the coastal stubs of equipment and software requirements to remotely and digitally monitor and log history of water levels inside and outside the system. This would be done in connection with the Tailwater Levee District. And Mr. Byrne reported that Registry 3 of the Tailwater Levee District had offered the transfer of surplus steam piles that the Tailwater Levee District acquired from Central West. We said both those are the material available for our recommendation, engineers to look at for potential use, and I'm sure Monty, I'll tell you. Monty, that question you brought up last meeting about possibly reinforcing the flood wall protection on the sheet pile wall or the coastal canal, that this is one place we can maybe use additional material to strengthen that. So I'm sure you will be brought in a discussion on that. And that's committed. Motion to discuss was presented and approved. Presented by my
Okay, thank you, Mr. Brown. In the audience comments, we have our tax assessor, Ms. Wendy Thibodeau. You have the floor.
Yes, thank you all for having me. My name is Wendy Thibodeau, and I'm here to announce that I am seeking re-election for the Lafourche Parish Assessor. Some of the things I am very proud of myself and my staff is that in the 9 years that I've been assessor, we have never failed an annual ratio study conducted by the Louisiana Tax Commission. The way you know that I've never failed it is that if I failed the ratio study conducted by the Tax Commission, they don't certify my tax roll. Therefore, we wouldn't give you money. So I am very pleased to say that I have passed it every year. I believe in fair and equitable assessments, and another way to prove that is after Hurricane Ida, I was faced with the task of reassessing 55,000 structures throughout this parish. I chose as the assessor not to just apply a blanket percentage of depreciation across the board, because I did not feel it was fair to the people in South Lafourche that they got the same amount of depreciation that the people in North Lafourche got, who did not sustain the same amount of damage. So I took my time, went neighborhood to neighborhood, and depreciated the property according to the damage in that area. It took a little bit of time, but I'm very happy to say that I believe we were very fair and equitable in that process. Some of the things that have transpired in the last couple of years, in 2022, I was named by the Industrial Group's Big Achiever for Lafourche Parish. Also in 2022, I was honored with the title of Louisiana's Assessor of the Year. That is the first time Lafourche Parish has ever been honored with that award, so I'm very, very proud of that. In 2023, you can think that I'm crazy, but I always believe in educating yourself and keeping on top of mastering your craft, being as educated as possible. And with the validity of the watercraft or oil and gas industry, we are heavily reliant on the watercraft industry. That's, 22% this year of our tax base. So on Thanksgiving Day, I started a 12-week online course out of London, England, through a maritime academy. And I'm proud to say I'm one of 5 people in Louisiana to hold the certification for vessel valuation. So at 2 o'clock in the morning on an online class, I wasn't too happy about it, but now that it's in the past, I'm thrilled that I have it. So if anybody wants to know how to value a Chinese tanker, I'm here. It was just part of the program I had to learn how to do in order to get the certification, so I did that. Moving, some other things that we did, in 2008, when the government took over, he made some changes to the 10-year industrial tax exemption program, which industry kind of, was a little apprehensive about moving forward with that. So what I did is I went to the sheriff this school board and the parish council and ask them to give me the authority, draw a resolution and vote on it, adopt a resolution, to give me the authority to approve any applications that came through LED. What I did is I purchased a $25,000 computer program that was custom built for Lafourche Parish. It has all of our information. Not Louisiana, just our information in Louisiana as far as our economy goes. And what happens is when these industries and these companies file with LED to apply for a 10-year exemption, I get that information, I put it into this computer program, and a report comes out. It's no emotion, it's strictly data. The information comes out in a report, and it'll show whether it's net neutral, net negative, or net positive for our economy, that area that project will be placed. And if it's net positive, those resolutions give me the authority to just streamline that process. Yes, it's approved. If it's net neutral and net negative, I give it back to the three districts, and they decide what they want to do with it, if they want to approve it or not. So that kind of took place early on, and I was a little bit concerned because I'm like, okay, I did all of this and nothing's coming through. But with government, it takes a little bit of time. And I'm happy to say that John Deere in Thibodeau, they were up against another John Deere location in Louisiana for an expansion project. And it's on a point system. So you get so many points for this, so many points for that. And I'm happy to say that because we have a streamlined high-tech program here in Lafourche Parish, they maxed out the points and they were awarded. I'm not saying that's the only reason, but it helped for them to receive or awarded the expansion project in Thibodeau, which is about 150 new jobs. So I'm happy to say that it finally came to fruition. So I was very, very pleased about that. Moving forward, just like you all, my South Lafourche office was, devastated with Hurricane Ida. So my staff in South Lafourche has been driving up to Thibodeau for 2 years now, and graciously, Town of Golden Meadow allowed myself and the DA's office to share an office. So I sent one employee on Mondays and Wednesdays down in Golden Meadow. Well, now that the port is back in their building, their permanent building, they are allowing us to move into their temporary building, which is right behind the port. So I'm happy to say that we are going to be open 5 days a week, and my staff will be able to move down here. Just like y'all, we are in contract with Red. I got to get all new software, new furniture, computer programs and stuff. So we are doing that. We are in the process of doing that. I'm really pushing that hard to get that open because next year is reassessment, and we still have a lot of hurricane damage. So I want to have as many people and have that office open as much as possible to service the people down here, and not have that on their list that they have to drive to Lafourche to just to come take care of their assessments and give us their, wood damage and so forth. Also moving forward in Thibodeau, the assessor's office is moving into another building. The registrar voter, when they were assigned that area, if y'all ever been to the registrar voter in Thibodeau, it's like a little sliver of an office. Well, back then they didn't have such a thing as early voting. And now that we have early voting, they need more room. So it was easier for them to move into my office, cut a hole in the wall, and they could come into my office and meet a move. So we will be moving into the A building. We're still in the same building, we just bought a little section that we didn't own, so we're gonna be moving over there. Also, the most important thing I feel, and I think y'all will agree with me, is that I have been asked, along with Dwayne Bushwater and Archie Chasson, to be part of the team to testify for the injunction with FEMA Risk 2.0. As soon as they called me, I was like, yes, I'll do it. I have been gathering data from lending institutions, and what I found is that out of the applications for new purchases, new properties to be purchased, the ones that do not close, 40% of the ones that do not close are not closing strictly because of insurance. 40%. And we've only had the first round of insurance increases. 40%. So I'm very worried about what we're about to see. Another thing which I'm more concerned about is people that already have mortgages. Those people just can't buy new properties. But I'm worried about the people that do already have mortgages that are federally backed loans that are required to have escrows. Because if these insurance premiums, they compound, if they keep on going, know people, they don't leave much room between their house note and what they have to play with. And if these insurance premiums keep on increasing like they are, I'm worried about the people that are not gonna be able to stay in their homes. 3 things could possibly happen. They abandon the home. They just abandon it to get rid of it and not pay the insurance. And what that leaves is blight. We are never gonna grow economically, bringing in new business if they drop and pass blight. It also brings crime and unwanted people that don't make good decisions. The other thing that can happen is that they can't afford the house note and it's foreclosed. Same thing, the bank doesn't take care of our properties like we take care of our properties. So again, it could be blight and so forth. The last thing that I'm concerned about is that if people sell their properties for less than what the market dictates, just to get rid of it. So if a house is $100,000 and they try to get rid of it to move and not pay the insurance, and they sell that house that's really worth $100,000, and they sell it for $50,000, the Constitution does not allow me to make those adjustments to say, well, this was created by man, this was created by FEMA. The house is really worth 100, but they sold it for 50, so I'm going to put it on at 100. The Constitution does not allow me to do that in reassessment. So what's going to happen is if I have enough sales in a certain area at that $50,000, the new market is going to be $50,000. The assessor only has the authority to control the value, not the millages, not the taxes. I only have control over the value. And if I am forced by the Louisiana law to lower that value, you understand what that means to every taxing district in Lafourche Parish. That means that you get less money and you're going to have to make adjustments to your budget. So I just want you all to know that even though I'm not on Facebook and say I'm doing this and that, I want you all to know and understand that I do fight for this parish every day. And I go Thursday to court. So I'm asking for prayers for that, because not to embarrass y'all, because sometimes I get ahead of myself. But I am fighting for us because I do want this parish to grow, and we need the economic development more than anything right now with the hurricane. I am asking for your support to help me continue to do what I love. I love what I do, and I just hope to continue to do that. Does anybody have any questions? Because that's my strong suit. This stuff is. Yeah. Well, if y'all have any questions, please don't hesitate to contact my office. I have a phenomenal staff. I'm a hot mess. It takes a village, and I'm not shy about saying that. They take care of me, and they're phenomenal. That's what your tax dollars go for, is those people. It's not just me, it's a whole staff. So if y'all ever need anything, please let me know. Thank you.
We definitely appreciate your efforts, Wendy, because it's a big concern of us, this lower part of the parish. We do a lot of rebuilds on Lafourche, and we go down these streets, and you wouldn't think people are still living like that.
Well, and what I'm concerned with the insurance and the depreciated tax base is that we got taxing districts like the hospital that are trying to make plans to rebuild.
Yeah.
And it's hard to set your budget and build effectively if you don't know, like the hurricane, we can kind of guess, because the hurricanes have hit all over the coast. But if you got this insurance working against us, and that's going to be part of my testimony, is that we are very self-sufficient here in Lafourche Parish. Like, I go around the whole state, and I'm very proud of the fact that we are very self-sufficient here. We needed a levee, tax ourselves, we built it. We don't go ask. So why would the federal government remove the option for us to help ourselves and be self-sufficient to where we're going to lose that tax base? Well, all we're going to turn around and do is go to the government, whether it be state or federal, to ask them to fill the void. Just leave us alone and let us do what we do, and I think we've kind of proven ourselves. We've always complied with what FEMA said on building higher, but now FEMA 2.0 is going to affect everybody in the parish, not just the south. So the north Lafourche area their eyes are open, because it's going to go on the distance you are from a waterway, not how high you build it. So the volume cuts our parish in half. Everybody's going to be affected by us. So that I totally understand, and that's why I didn't hesitate to answer. I don't know
Oh, appreciate that. Anybody else from the audience? Joe, you have anything?
Yeah.
Our state representative. We'll put them in this camera spot. Joe Jerome got re-elected for another 4 years unopposed. Thank you all very much for the confidence in me doing the job. I know that we're coming up on capital outlay. It's important to hear the projects going forward firsthand as we go through that process. Always love coming here, hearing the engineers' reports. I seem to get a lot of questions from the constituents asking about various projects, roads, bridges, bridge repairs, levees, the elevated highway, whatever it is, drainage. So I find that coming to these meetings is always this one, Port Commission, Parish Council, and the town councils of the 3 municipalities I represent. So just appreciate being here. Told Wendell and Nick that whenever y'all have your first meeting in this room, that I will be here. Happy to be here and happy to return to normalcy a little bit at a time, 2 years after Hurricane Ida. So let's keep moving, let's keep progressing. Thank you.
Still have a question.
Go ahead.
I saw this article in the Gazette the other day about the Golden Bridge. Realistically, when do you think that this will be repaired?
Day after tomorrow is the letter. Day after tomorrow, DOTD picks the low bid for that particular contract. Are they rebuilding? They are repairing or repairing?
To start with,
And to start immediately, they're gonna have almost an immediate notice to proceed as soon as they get the materials on site. The structural repairs of the bridge deck have to be done first. So you're gonna see them working on the bad beams and the structural repairs first. They'll get it operational so that people can start using it, and then they'll start working on the second phase, which is the lights and the safety interlock systems and other things. And while they're doing the safety interlock systems, we're gonna kind of have the curfew light times where it's open for the buses in the morning, and then from 9 to 3 it's closed, and then it opens up in the afternoon.
Will that include sandblasting and painting and other?
That will not, that has been on DOTD's project list for fiscal year 26-27. So refurb of the Golden Meadow Bridge, just like what was done to the lift bridge on the Intracoastal. So whenever the Intracoastal Bridge got done, the Golden Meadow Bridge got lined for 26-27. So the whole time it's been out, and everybody's been saying, well, it's out, they can do blasting and painting. DOTD's been saying, nope, we got money for that, that's later. Right now, we're just working on the structural repairs, the safety repairs. And actually, in that contract, whoever wins it will, after doing Golden Meadow, they will have to go to the Lafourche Bridge, because even though they worked on that last year, September, October, and it was out all the way until November 11th of last year, which is the day that the Golden Meadow Bridge got locked out. They didn't do all of the safety repairs on that, because I had seen that whenever I was following the Golden Meadow Bridge repairs, I saw that they kept adding things for the Galliano Bridge. And whenever I asked them what it was, they said that there was still a punch list of things for the Galliano Bridge.
When the Golden Meadow Bridge was built, it was going to have problems right after it was built. I asked the highway department what the problem was. He says, the problem is there was allocated enough money to build the Lafourche Bridge. Then they decided to build the Golden Meadow Bridge, and they didn't allocate enough money, any money there. So the money to build one bridge was spread over 2 bridges. And he said, the problems you got in Golden Meadow, you're going to have them in Galliano for the rest of the life of that bridge, because it was cheaply constructed and the cheapest parts you could find.
Agreed. All I know is that the years of neglect and the lack of maintenance that's gotten the Golden Meadow Bridge to where it's at is something that really needs to be addressed going forward.
Well, this is a little different than the Levee Bridge. I talked to electricians and they were making repairs using paper clips. People can't.
The old lift bridge?
Yeah,
The old lift
the
bridge.
whole thing that pushed the elevated bridge,
Yeah.
getting Levee. And that, you talk about, we should have learned that. It doesn't change.
As a legislator,
one thing you realize is that the wish list of DOTD on, if we had all the money in the world and all the time and all the engineering to fix, and the dollars that were given each year, it's 15 to 1. It's $15 billion a year to expand and fixing stuff, and they only get $1 billion. So 15 to 1 prioritization ratio. But I'm gonna just say that,
Send them the rules bridges were pretty good.
yeah, people are those bridges working good. And I don't know if you're gonna hear, I know you all care about the Valentine Bridge, but I've been keeping up with GIS, and that's moving along, surely, slowly but surely. So looking forward to getting that back in action.
Thank you, Joe. Thank you. Okay, moving on to our general manager's report. Nick?
All right, thank you, Mr. President. First up, at the August CPRA meeting, it was held on August 16th in Homa. Terrible Levee District, North Lafourche Levee District, and myself updated the CPRA on the Gulf project, and I provided an update on recent and planned work, especially the work that we're using Gulf of Mexico Energy Security Act funds and state surplus funds for. Our office status update, the fire marshal completed inspection of the building on August 15th and issued us with temporary occupancy. We needed to add grab rails and Americans with Disabilities Act signage, and we need self-closing 45-minute fire-rated doors for the back storage area here before we can get our permanent occupancy. So those doors are on back order. They'll be installed as soon as they come in. At that point, the fire marshal's gonna have to come back and do another inspection to give us that certificate of permanent occupancy. But we have been cleared to be here.
I got a question.
Yes, sir.
Are we having lights for the sign? Because I noticed there's none on the new sign.
We did not have lights. Did we have lights previously? No.
No, I thought we did. But I noticed like at night I passed. I think we should have.
We should have.
We could look into installing even solar lights so we don't have to run electricity there. Because I've also been looking into solar light option for the flagpole that we have a flagpole that's not flying a flag.
Right.
But according to the flag code, if we're gonna fly it 24 hours, it needs to be lighted at night. And so if we would put that, instead of having to have our guys come every morning, every afternoon, raising and lower it, to be.
Okay.
Which we did have a big light for security reasons
At the pole.
on the road.
I guess that's what I saw. Because I remember seeing, you know what I mean? And I passed the other day, the other morning, and I'm like,
Make solar
ain't got no light on it? So,
No, it's good.
if we could look at it, maybe while we're doing the poll.
So the sign has been replaced out front. We're also working on getting audio equipment, including microphones for you guys, speakers, and a mixer to provide to Rev's video feed so that the public, when they're watching at home, can actually hear what we're saying instead of, I think we've already seen how echoey this room is, since we don't have carpet, we don't have much of anything on the walls yet. But that will need to wait until our new desk is in place, because the wiring for the microphones is gonna have to run through the desk once it's in place. Materials for the desk have been delivered to the carpentry program at the Career Magnet Center in Lockport. Those students are putting that desk together for us. We don't have a firm date of when that'll be completed, but it's before the October board meeting. So as Ms. Thibodeau mentioned, we do have the risk rating 2.0 lawsuit hearing coming up this week. The suit, as y'all remember, was filed by several states, including Louisiana, on June 1st of this year. We also filed a preliminary injunction requesting the judge to force FEMA to stop using risk rating 2.0 until the hearing was completed. And the federal court hearing on the injunction was originally scheduled for August 18th. But on August 7th, FEMA filed a motion to have the judge dismiss the suit completely. And so before the judge can rule on the injunction, they have to rule on the request to dismiss the case outright. So the hearing was postponed until this Thursday, September 14th at 9 a.m., and that's being heard at the U.S. Eastern District Courthouse in the Hillbox Federal Building on Porter Street in New Orleans. The hearing will be a combined hearing on FEMA's request to dismiss the suit altogether and the preliminary injunction, which, talking with the Attorney General's office, that seems promising, that you don't need a hearing on the injunction if they're going to dismiss the case altogether. So at least on the surface, it seems promising, though not guaranteed, obviously, that we'd see a dismissal of FEMA's request to dismiss the suit immediately followed by the hearing on the injunction, where the judge would decide at that point whether FEMA has to stop using risk rating 2.0 in the interim. But then that raises questions of, if they don't use risk rating 2.0, what do they use? Do they have to go back to the old program? Are they going to get, X amount of days to come up with a temporary program? So we'll hear all that on Wednesday, or Thursday rather. But the Attorney General's office has encouraged all agencies who sign on to the lawsuit, including us, to attend the opening arguments this Thursday. And this will be the best way for us to understand how FEMA plans to defend their case. And as our assessor pointed out a little earlier about that trickle-down effect that, people are being hit with higher flood insurance rates, that's affecting sale prices, that will ultimately affect assessed values and ultimately affect how much money we receive from tax revenues. And even further trickle-down effect would be that if our resources are reduced and we can't maintain the levees and raise them like they should be, then people's flood risk will increase, only increasing the insurance, and then it's cyclical from there. So it's really vital that we fix all the issues that we know are there and the ones that we don't know that are there, because we haven't been allowed to see any of FEMA's methodology. When they've been asked to provide documentation, the only documentation they've provided so far are either incomplete documents that have been in development or information that was already publicly available to begin with. So they really haven't provided anything of substance to show us, the people that have filed the lawsuit, or just the public in general, what has actually been done mathematically to figure out these extreme flood insurance rates. It's more just been kind of a trust us, it's better, which, well, we don't trust you, and that's our policy. So we'll see this coming Thursday what will be coming to that. The next two items on the list, I've talked to our president, Mr. Guidry, about tabling those two decisions for this month. We did collect proposals for debris removal and monitoring, but it's a lot to go through. It's not as simple as a public bid where we just take the lowest price, because it's a combination of price and qualifications. So trying to judge those on their merit was not easy to do in the 1 week span we've had since we've gotten them. And so in the interim, let's say we do get hit by a storm between now and the next board meeting, since we've gone through the solicitation process, it was a valid process according to FEMA, and we could call an emergency meeting and just award one of those contracts and go with them if the need arose between now and the next board meeting. The freshwater management work group that Mr. Collier mentioned in his minutes of the executive committee meeting. So the day after last month's board meeting, the directors, board presidents, and parish presidents from South Lafourche Levee District, Terrebonne Levee District, North Lafourche Levee District, Lafourche Parish, Terrebonne Parish, and the Levee Lafourche Freshwater District, we all met at the North Lafourche office to talk about the improvements that are being made on the project to reintroduce Mississippi River water into Levee Lafourche. So that's the pump station project in Donaldsonville that introduces Mississippi River water into Levee Lafourche there. Currently, they're only able to pump about 500 CFS, and with this project online and refurbishment of their existing pump stations, that'll bring it up to about 2,000 CFS, so 4 times the amount of water that they'll be able to pump down by Lafourche, which, as long as we have our lock in place, is not an issue. But there's also the issue of we're getting this water, we only need a certain percentage of that to make sure that our drinking water that we get from Lafourche is going to be of higher quality. And so the question was brought up, what can we do positively with the rest of this water? And so the entities that all sort of manage the water control structures, the pump stations, the floodgates, that could manage how that water gets moved around the basin, we all met to discuss what we would like to do, what we can do, in terms of maximizing the benefit of that fresh water coming down. And so at our first meeting, we decided that probably the most prudent method forward is to have a basin-wide model of the system of all the waterways that water from Lafourche can get to different places between the Atchafalaya River and the Jefferson-Lafourche Parish line that runs down the middle of Bay Road and down through Little Lake. And then we'll be able to input into that model all the pumps and floodgates and other water control structures that could be used in effectively moving that water where it needs to be. Some prime areas that we were talking about that really need the fresh water would be like the area between Pointe-aux-Chenes and our system that's seen such terrible degradation over the decades. It's a hard place to get to because it's so far from the Atchafalaya and from the Mississippi that you're really limited on how you can get fresh water into that area. So this would be a way to target, for example, those problem areas. There's no action that's required at this point. North Lafourche Levee District's attorney is working on language for a cooperative endeavor agreement that all of our legal counsels will review and for us to consider moving forward on sharing the costs that would be included in like this modeling effort and anything past that.
We could probably ask the Corps of Engineers to present to us, and they could probably do it for $50 to $60 million. I'm not.
That's one possibility. I'm going to recommend against that, but
And take 5 years to do it.
yeah, no one is here from the floor, so we can have our fun. But CPRA was also in attendance at that meeting, and so they recognize the importance of being able to do this. There was some talk about possibly reallocating some funding from other freshwater enhancement projects to this effort, so that's a possibility going forward. Not just putting our own money, getting some substantial money from CPRA. And one question I brought up was about future operations and maintenance of, let's say, if we want to utilize a pump station, one of our pump stations, to facilitate moving fresh water down. Well, that's a lot more wear and tear on our equipment. That's not necessary for what our charge is, which is flood protection. So the CPR is aware of that possibility, and we'll be looking in the future at possibly having some funding streams available for fuel, for maintenance that's required above and beyond what we normally would have done, or possibly putting in additional infrastructure that would just be dedicated just to flowing fresh water instead of using our equipment. So that's, to me, that would be the better option to have completely separated equipment. So I'll update you guys as that moves on and develops. We also had a separate meeting at North Lafourche with Terrebonne Levee District, South Lafourche Levee District, North Lafourche Levee District, and the Corps of Engineers on August 30th to discuss the status of the Morganton to the Gulf system and all the reaches currently in construction, as well as top priorities moving forward into the next federal fiscal year funding requests. And we also have a Water Resources Development Act coming up that they were looking for potentially new projects or new studies or additional investments that can be made that way. I did relay that from our standpoint, the biggest priorities would be reaches K and L, and those are the levee reaches that extend from Pointe-aux-Chenes to the intersection of sections C North and C South on our system. And you can easily get to that construction on Reach L right now. But the other priority for South Lafourche to me would be the GIWW East floodgate here in the Rose. That's going to be a 225-foot wide sector gate that connects our system to the North Lafourche Levee District system along the Morganton to the Gulf line. The Corps has not decided on the exact location of that gate. There are a number of issues. There are pipelines in the area, Tidewater Dock is there, the Enbridge, La Rose facility is there. There's also the question of how to tie into our system, since we do have the flood wall along the Intracoastal that then has a road gate across the Delta Farms Road here. And then we have the question of what to do with pump station number 7, whether that would be included in the system, would be left out of the system. It's possible that The tie-in to our levee system would be south of pump station number 7 for cost reasons, which would then mean that the Corps would have to rebuild and move pump station number 7, which sounds like it would be a crazy expense, but when we had a meeting about this a couple months ago, our quick back of the napkin numbers showed that that would probably be cheaper than building a T-wall around the in-bridge facility to then connect north of pump station number 7. So it would be cheaper, and we'd get a new pump station facility out of that deal, so that wouldn't be terrible. And from a drainage standpoint, it really doesn't make a difference that much whether we're pumping there or a couple hundred feet further south. But nothing's been decided yet, so we're staying in communication with the Corps on that project. The other issue I did bring up to Colonel Jones in that meeting was the fact that, or what I called in the meeting, a gap in the Morganza system. And Reggie Dupree of Terrible Levee District was quick to point out, well, no, that's where y'all system comes in and ties in. I said, well, according to the Corps, we don't have a levee there. So really, when you're talking about Morganza, there's a gap in federal levees. When you get to between the end of Reach L and that WW gate. And so I brought up to the Colonel saying, well, we know we have a levee there. It's provided us great protection. We're currently in the process of trying to get back into the rehabilitation and inspection program of the Corps, which would then help us to get certified and accredited. But as it stands right now, the Corps does not have a federal levee along our alignment. And so I asked them, is there any opportunity for the Corps under the Morganza authorization to look at least that stretch there to see, you know, is it up to the standards of what the Corps would want? Obviously, the Corps just built a few years back, built a flood wall and a gate at 11 feet. Well, the alignment for Morganza there needs to be 16 feet. So the Corps themselves built a structure that's now insufficient for another project that they're going to have to address. So there's several things that, you know, Colonel was intrigued at least at those questions. So he has been very cooperative and really quick to respond. So I'm sure he's going to be giving us an answer on how we can maybe address that pretty soon. I also see him pretty often for our kids are all in Cub Scouts, so I get to bug him, you know, outside of work hours too there. So that's the update on Morganza. Budget revisions. I do have, I'll pass these around for those of you who weren't in our finance committee meeting before. So we received an additional $3.4 million from CPRA from the Go Mesa program, and we've also received an additional $6 million of surplus funding from the state. And so in looking at what would be a recommendation on how to utilize that $6 million, because the $3.4 million is directly dedicated for the A East levee improvements. The $6 million, though, is kind of generic for anything that we want to use it on levee construction for our system. And so looking at the different ways that we could use that on our system, I looked into the budget that was adopted in March of this year, and to see how we, you know, record that money coming in and record where that money would be going out. And I realized that we could probably be a lot clearer in how we account for the money that we get from the state or federal government as it comes in, and where that money is going out specifically to individual projects. And so in doing that, I came up with, you'll see 3 columns. We have an adopted budget, we have a proposed budget, and then I sent it to our auditor for him to look at and give some recommendations. So that third column is his recommendations on how we should maybe revise our budget to better capture some of this. The main changes are on the second page, where we look at our revenue sources. Anything that's in bold and italics is added. Anything that's scratched through would be stuff that I recommend we pull out. And so this lines out directly from, say, the Gulf of Mexico Energy Security Act. Well, those funds are directly tied to projects and agreements that we have in place with CPRA. So this shows exactly how much money we get in for those individual projects from CPRA. And then at the bottom there, the state surplus fund, an extra $6 million. Then the section below that where it says reserve for capital expenditures, I added lines to show per project what we would be spending of our own funds and what we would be utilizing state funds for each of those projects. And in doing that and incorporating the additional $9.4 million that we're getting from the state this year, it allows us to free up a good bit of our own money to use on other projects. So in the end, if we would adopt this and we allocate the surplus funds to what I've recommended here, to the Section F levee improvements, to the Section A East levee improvements, and then actually on the bottom, towards the bottom of your page, where it says D South Flood Wall Phase 3, the only revision I would have for you guys there is where it says Go Mesa funds, that would need to be state surplus funds instead of Go Mesa funds. That was a typo on my part. So this is my layout of what I would recommend we revise the budget to. Most of it is just accounting for what was already agreed to and what we have agreements in place for. It's just making that clearer. And in doing that, it allows us to see where we can apply some of this $6 million from state surplus funds to some of those projects in order to free up some of our own funds to do additional things. So in the end, with all these projects accounted for and having money allocated to, that would give us at the end a little over $14 million that we have available to spend on other projects as they come up. We don't have to spend all that $14 million this year, obviously. I'd be impressed if we could, but we could add projects as the year goes on, or that would roll over to next year or the following years to be able to do more projects in the future. So, we did talk about this earlier at our finance committee meeting, and so Monty's going to bring that up in his portion. I just wanted to be able to explain that all while I was doing my overall ramble here for you guys. So that's the recommended budget amendment that y'all are going to be voting on later. And obviously we can answer your questions now or later if y'all have on that, on how that all is at.
So we have to vote on approval.
Monty will handle that when he reads the finance committee portion later. Representative Ogeron mentioned that capital outlay is coming out. The deadline to submit capital outlay requests is November 1st. The last few years we have been receiving about $10 million in Priority 5 money. Now Priority 5 money is either new or reauthorized non-cash lines of credit. Priority 5 is essentially a waiting list to be able to receive credit in a future year. It's approved for capital outlay, but it doesn't actually receive the funding that year. Priorities 3 and 4 are a new appropriation that can receive cash lines of credit from the State Bond Commission, but only after all of Priority 1 and Priority 2 have been funded. Priority 2 is for new appropriations that haven't gone through the capital outlay process and been approved already, that they'll receive a cash line of credit after all of Priority 1, which is reauthorized projects that have already been approved through capital outlay, but just haven't received some or all of their funding yet. So, Joe,
You got it. I just like saying it's good to get in P5, get in Priority 5 1 year for a full amount of a big project.
Yeah.
And then they move from that amount into P1 for you to actually put, move dirt and pay for that.
yeah.
So
So
the 3 and 4, you don't want to be stuck in 3 and 4 because you're waiting on 1 and 2s. But it's okay to, something new to be put into 2, but you're still waiting at, like you said, after Priority 1s are made. So we understand it.
I don't know if it makes it feel better or worse that Joe doesn't have it either, but it's,
Just make sure you'll get them all to me, or we get them all into the E-Cord by Halloween.
Halloween, yeah, that's it. So, in looking at what to request for capital outlay, Joe and I have been talking about a few ideas. One thing I would definitely recommend that we reapply for, we have been putting about $10 million or $4 million in, to get money for construction and lifting of A West. So it's the western side behind Golden Meadow, that Angela Design is working on right now. So I would recommend that we do that. We don't have to vote today, we'll go to the October meeting. Because one thing I am working on that Joe and I have been talking about is how we get our water level information in the bayou and the Bar Canal. Currently, at most of our pump stations, the way we get our water level information is by one of our guys physically going out there and looking at the gauge and saying, all right, this is what it is. It's not the most convenient method. That's not great for when we're trying to, like most recently, going through the hazard mitigation grant program process with Lafourche Parish government on trying to get $15 million for roads locked. Well, we were very limited on the amount of water level data that we had to give them to do the benefit cost analysis. And so this kind of thing would help out in that. It would help us to be able to better manage how much water we have in the borough canals. And one thing I would like to see definitely is water levels for outside the system. We have water levels outside the system at the lock currently, but we can get water level information even during a storm, so that we know how high the storm surge got all along our levee. So we could have this information at all of our pump stations and our lock and our floodgate. We could get wind speed and direction of storms, and we'd be able to go back, we'd get precipitation, rainfall, and we can go back on a digital database and be able to pull historically what we've seen in all these different locations. So I've been working with Delta Coast Consultants because they've assisted Terrebonne Levee District a lot in developing their program. So they're working on a cost estimate that we can put into the capital outlay program to get capital outlay funding to put all this in place. So, and Joe has committed that if I put it in, he's going to get it. So,
But yeah, I want to see it, and like I said, I don't think we need to duplicate what you call the front end or the public use side. Maybe just if we could piggyback within the Terrebonne,
yes.
as long as there's no,
Well, that's it.
so let's say bud burn or whatever y'all want to call it. Y'all don't have any pride issues on if you've seen their system, you saw how good it works. And I think in the end, we're gonna kind of be, nothing that I'm working towards, but we're gonna have to monitor everything from Gibson all the way to the river is gonna be one hydrodynamic model that we're gonna work with anyway, that we're just an integral part of.
Well, like we were talking about the freshwater working group, that we're still trying to come up with a catchy name for it, but this kind of information would be useful to that, to show where we need more water, where things are being successful or not. Like Joe mentioned, the Terrebonne Levee District system, you can see at all of their floodgates, you can see what gates are open and closed, and you can see all the water levels inside and out.
Flow rates at the
Right.
floodgates as well.
But we can set up our own, and we'd actually be able to have our own at SLLD.org, that people would be able to go and see at any time, go on the phone, on a computer, what all the different water levels, what the past water levels everywhere. So it'd be accessible for everyone. So, but again, there's no action required right now. That's just letting y'all know that that's coming up probably next month that we'll do. Well, it'll have to be next month because before November 1st. But it's also the opportunity to talk about any, if y'all have any other capital outlay ideas that, the couple things that we had in capital outlay last year, the only thing that's not been funded yet is the A West construction. So, but that would be my recommendation for next month.
A West is the absolute lowest part in Golden Meadow from the floodgate on the west side.
Yeah.
Where does it end at?
A West, yeah, the Apache Dock.
Apache Dock.
And then that starts B south until you get to Goldman Park. Yes.
On the south end, I saw who's in charge of the maintenance of the pipes, the pipeline pipes and all the oil company itself? I saw they all rusty and stuff on the south end, right when you're coming up into the ramp on the left side.
That's all, that's the one.
Oh, is it the water district, right? That's the water lines.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Pipes, okay.
Yeah, they get, you know what I mean, you're looking kind of shabby. Yeah.
And then the other thing mentioned a little bit earlier was the Water Resource Development Act of 2024. Senator Kennedy's office requested that we submit any recommendations for the upcoming Water Resource Development Act. So this is the act that you'll get new authorizations for federal projects, you'll get reauthorizations for changes, you'll get some funding, and a large chunk of it that I know CPRA kind of focuses on is basically any federal policy issues that have stopped us from doing what we need to do from a coastal restoration or flood protection standpoint. This is the opportunity to make recommendations on having those federal laws or policies change. And so one thing that I've recommended to Senator Kennedy's office is what Mr. Collins mentioned a little bit in the executive committee report, that we're trying to get back into the rehabilitation program and ultimately into the federal system, be certified and accredited. But that process is taking a very long time, and there's still no guarantee that we'll be able to get in. In reality, we know that the National Levee database is showing that our levee went past a 10-year storm event, and we passed a nearly 300-year level storm event. So we know in reality that our system works and should be accredited and certified. It's just to be able to prove to the Corps on paper that it should. We didn't always follow exactly the HISRIS guidelines that the Corps requires, namely like in using side borrow, they have to truck everything else in. But we've been able to come up with ways to construct levees and structures in a much more cost-effective, but obviously effective manner. And so one recommendation that I've made to Senator Kennedy's office is to have the Corps perform basically like a forensic analysis. They've been looking at the as-builts and all of our construction methods, and I'm basically encouraging to say, forget all that, how it was constructed, what's there now, and would its factors of safety and all the other requirements that the Corps would put on levee construction, do we meet now what you would have met had you built it your way? And if so, then there's no reason to exclude us because we're missing a daily inspection report from construction of a project 10 years ago. You know, so if we approach it this way, it could be all done by the Corps, could take a little longer, but could be more direct and not as prone to gaps as we have in our current method of going back historically the way things were constructed. So that's one recommendation I made. We're going to be able to talk to Senator Kennedy's folks. I also forwarded it to Congressman Graves' office because I know they're probably most well versed on issues with the Corps of Engineers. But we'll be able to discuss all that with them when Keith and I head up there to DC next week. So that was one of our big topics of discussion, how do you back this bill up. So I did give myself a script so I wouldn't get off topic too bad, but that's my report. So any questions that we have, I'll take those.
Okay, engineering report, CPRA, Daniel, do you have anything?
The only thing I have, the only note I have is CPRA, project management is legal. They're working on language and agreements for some of these funding agreements. One of the new ones is the 80s agreement. One of the existing ones I think is being updated is the catch-all T-154. That's our Rose to Gold Meadow overall system agreement, and I think it's being updated to include, I think it's D-South Phase 3 is going to be included in that. That's about all I have. It's just details so that the funding flows properly. Just bureaucratic process. Attention to the details. I mean, nothing I'm too keen on working with. We do construction. But that's it.
All right, thank you, Dave.
No problem.
Corps of Engineers, everyone here? All right, we're going to project engineers, Christie on the Scotias, Joe.
Yes, on the road rock project, last week we were issued a state permit. So we have our state DNR permit, authorization. We should get Corps asked us to get a DEQ permit, to study, I guess, water flow or any kind of damages in construction or the project may cause. We should have that next week, either this week or next week sometime. That should release the Corps, that's all their requirements for them issuing their permit. So hopefully we should have a permit soon. We've had some slowdown because of the weather, because of rain, but they are making good progress, and the way they're placing the material is gonna make it, a lot easier for us to do the next project, which is shaping the dirt into the levee section, so, it's going really well so far. He submitted the application number 2, in the amount of $298,931.03, and I do recommend you pay that.
And that is who? Construction type?
Construction Site Specialties LLC.
Yeah, no?
Youngsville.
Okay, gentlemen, you've heard the recommendation of our engineer to be construction site contractor. Pay request number 2, in the amount of $298,931.03. Moved by Mr. Ronald, second by Mac. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passed.
One more question, Joe. That last segment before you get to the ramp, they haven't put anything. Is there a reason why? Because they sort of kept increasing as they went, and they had to put another, that last segment to the ramp, they have nothing in there. They plan to go a different route, I think.
I think they are planning on one of it.
And I just wonder why they did, because they covered a whole big area when it first started, and they really done a good job of beefing it up, they did a great job. But they just haven't put anything in that last segment, which is our little segment, is the part they're right.
The plan was to work from the south one to the north.
Right. But it's just they kind of stopped and then made everything big for a while. And I mean, they did a great job, but it's just, one area got touched.
Okay, Hurricane Ida storm damage repairs to the pump station and floodgates. Granite Shipyard is a contractor, the project is complete, and we're still in the lean period. We don't have a pay application this month, but we're working on with them. They owe us a few credits on items that they didn't do, and we're also working with them on time. They didn't complete it in time, and we've got some numbers from them, but we're still talking with them and also with the administration about whether we'll assess damages or not, depending on if they can come up with a reasonable explanation why they put it. And Hurricane Ida storm damage repairs to the main office, and our shipyard is a contractor. This project is also complete in the lean period. As Nick discussed, there's several punch list items that they have to complete. They actually are working on them now. We do need those fire doors in place to get our final occupancy, but they're on order and they should come in within the next couple of weeks. So we do have pay application number 9 in the amount of $7,965 even, and we do recommend you pay that.
Okay, you've heard the recommendation of our engineer, pay request number 9 to Grand Isle Shipyard Construction, amount of $7,965. Moved by Brian, second by Mr. Rowland. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passed.
A change order.
Yes, we have change order number 1, which is for adding stair tread. So, the original stairs going up to the storage room in the attic was wood. We've never really had it in a design to replace that or add some kind of finished stair treads going up. It's kind of slippery and, so we asked them for a change order to do that. They gave us a quote in the amount of $3,900 even, and we do recommend you pay that.
Okay, you've heard the recommendation of the engineer for change order number 1 in the amount of $3,900 for stair treads. Moved by Monty, second by Mac. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried.
D North Levee Phase 2, outer limit contracts as a contractor. This project's complete in the lean period. There's no pay application this month. And we also have the maintenance of the north sector gates of the Ontario locks. Project plan and specifications are complete. We are currently advertising for bids. We'll accept bids on October 4th at 11 a.m. And I forgot about the roof repairs. We did roof repairs on this building as a separate contract, and our shipyard is a contractor. We do have a pay application application this month, I don't have what's the amount?
1140.
11,140, that's correct. So-
That was the improvement.
So that was some moving improvements, right?
Hurricane.
For additional screws, fixing the flash.
It wasn't repairs, improvements,
They went back and reviewed and looked at some deficiencies.
So you recommend,
Recommend paying that application.
or the recommendation of engineer to pay GIS, they request number one in the amount of $11,140. Moved by Marty, second by Mr. Rowland. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried.
Yes, that's what.
You also have to check.
My question was, who did it in the first place?
That's original.
There was a contractor that the Levee district hired, I don't know who it was.
Yeah, it was a group of y'all that put in a bid, this is when it was hard to get any type of covering on.
We tried to get some of.
But I mean, it was a solid job, we just wanted to come back after, look, if the roof had not fallen off this building, we would have never been out of it, okay? And we were one of the few buildings that the metal roof didn't work, okay? So we had that Joe to come back and say, look, can you make it better than it is? And he found a couple of places for sure, and then we just, get better screws in there, it's just a safer piece than that. Like I said, we had a decent roof last time, you know, so make sure we didn't have to put that in.
There's some things that you can do, I mean, if you're installing a metal roof, there's a manufacturer's recommendation, right? They follow the manufacturer's recommendation, but there's things that we do down here that make the metal roof stronger, so it will withstand hurt, like increasing or decreasing the spacing of the screws, put more screws, especially at the bottom, at the top, and on the sides. And there's also some things you can do to the flashing to add more screws and do the flashing a certain way, so the flashing don't come undone and then it messes up the fan. So that's what it wasn't repaired, it was just hardening.
Added on more screws.
My question would be, if it was repairs that had been done right, you would get a credit for it. But I understand that.
Yeah.
So we do have certificate of substantial completion for this part because it was a separate contract, and we have to approve that also.
Okay. All right, you heard a recommendation engineer to accept the certificate of substantial completion. Moved by Mr. Ronald, second by Brian, all in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion carried. All right, that's it, Joe.
That's it.
GIS engineer, John.
Yeah, it's my turn this morning. East Retention Project, we're still working on the permits for that one. DNR has requested a level 4 HMIA, which I think stands for hydrological modification impact analysis. Typically, you don't get past a 1
That's what I
on
thought
that,
it was.
but they have asked us to go all the way to 4 on that one, so we are working on that. We should get that to them in the next few days. That's MIT road. DNR grant project, we have 2 things on the agenda for y'all today to help close out that project. We'll start with D, revised change order number 3, the increased contract price by $24,886. This is for LA Contracting. They did haul in some more material than we had anticipated, so we would like to add that onto the change order. Now, the contract requirement change order.
Then we need to do one at a time.
Yes.
Okay, you heard the recommendation engineer, pay application number 4, the LA contract, for $200,024.97.
$24,000.
The change order, the change order first.
Change order.
He did it first. He did be before that, sir.
All right. Moved by Ike, second by Mitch. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried.
Number 4, in the amount of $200,024.97.
All right, you've heard the recommendation of engineer. The application number 4, the LA contract is $200,024.97. Moved by Mitch, second by Monty. All in favor? Opposed? Good job, Mitch.
And we will have one more balancing change order.
Mitch is ready.
Okay, in accordance with that, we've got the North ramp lift and material stockpile project. We took quotes on that Friday. The low quote, and actually the only quote we received was from Outer Limit. I'm sure I have that number here somewhere for that. But it was just under the $250,000. Late thing, I say just seems like 212. Yeah, it was $212,750 for the base bid. We had a couple of additive alternates to try to get more material out of it from different locations. It's a triangular piece of property, and the hypotenuse is where we're getting all the material, but if we can go along the base lengths, that would be helpful as well. So we are asking the board to approve that.
Okay, you've heard the recommendation of engineer to, what was the amount of that bid?
The $212,750 for the base bid.
How much was the estimate?
I think it was 180.
The estimate was 178, John.
Thank you.
That's close to 180.
You were right there. And 178,750, so you were real close.
The bid was all,
The bid.
that's the important thing.
Okay, we need to accept that, the bid, right? Correct. Okay, we've heard the recommendation of engineer to accept that bid from Outer Limit, or whatever number.
Whatever, John.
Moved by Mitch, moved by Mitch. All right, on the table, moved by Brian, he'll take it home. And, second by Mr. Rowland, all in favor? Opposed? Motion carried.
Thank you. The D South flood wall phase 3 that Nick had mentioned before, trying to get CPRA to help fund that. It's just a contract for our engineering services project.
Right, engineering, anytime you see engineering, got dollars on that.
I understand.
I know.
So what this would be, I'll pull it up on Google Earth because we could do that. But it close it out.
Yeah, we had, at Express Farm, we had done the flood wall. We replaced the part in the middle, we replaced some of the wings, we just need to extend it out a little further to match the actual levee that's there.
On the ends of the project here, we currently have Tesco baskets in place to try to make our elevations that we need. And so this would be using some of that state funding from the revised budget to make this happen.
Surplus funds, right?
Surplus funding, correct.
Do away with the ESCO. All right, John, anything else?
Do they need to vote on that?
Yes, yeah. That would be the contract for the design of the project.
Do we need a?
So, yeah, we need to vote to.
All right.
He needs to design to get the work done before we can go to bid.
Correct. All right. second by Matt. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passed.
And the reconnection of Buck Bread Canals by Lafourche, we have got the signed contract with y'all, and they could give us a notice to proceed. So we're working on that one immediately. I know Greg and I can try to schedule a meeting, try to get some of y'all forces to do some of the clearing work, so we'll be working on that.
I saw DOT was around there, making point marks, finger marks and all.
Okay.
Yep.
Thank
And at Cloverly too, both of them.
you. Yeah.
On the wood.
And we'll coordinate with DOT as we move forward.
And this is a project that we did get $878,000 committed from Drainage District Number 1 to fund the construction. And we would take care of the engineering design and clearing the canal.
We do it ourselves.
I have a question, if you don't mind. There's a project on DOTD's books to replace 5 bridges on 308 McLeod. Well, I think there's one north of Highway 90 between 182 and Highway 90. That's one. The McLeod Bridge, the one just north of the Intracoastal and Cloverly and Breton. How does the Breton replacement play with y'all?
That's one of the things, like, we're gonna coordinate with DOTD on how to do that. We just need to make sure that DOTD leaves us a big enough space to get the water we need to get to.
Might be more than 5, because I think, isn't at the Valentine plant, that bridge on
Although
308?
Valentine is probably on that list.
Not-
And because of the other conversation with, because our banks are subsiding everywhere, South Louisiana, that the idea of draining from into the bayous is not working anymore. And so for these things, we just said, look, bridges, it's more expensive, so just put some ramps. And I told them we were trying to get something, probably not at Cloverly, but at talking out. But I think that statewide, we need to look at that idea, and instead of putting a hole through the banks of the bayous, we need to look at raising the banks of the bayou, using the roads to raise, and not put any drainage pipes in. We have to drain everything from the back. But not to say do it everywhere, but check everywhere first before you just automatically put culverts like they used to in the past, because it just, for us, absolutely, it's not an advantage.
In particular, the Humboldt Canal is probably one of those that might can be addressed like one. Maybe globally as well, depending on what
Right.
the board decides to do in the future.
Okay.
Yeah, John.
That's it?
Question for John? Thank you. And you let design, Neil?
All right, the Seaside Levee reshaping project, that project was completed by Ground Shipyard on July 5th. Right now, we're in the clearing period, and all the punch lists are complete. What you see here is some stockpile material that was left over on the project, and we're gonna use it on a subsequent project that's been awarded to do outside total repairs. That's a different project, but this is a view of the completed project from GIS. And the levee's starting to grass over really well. On the Sea North Levee improvements in this project, that contractor, Compo and Sons, is continuing to work along. They're starting to work on the segment along by we're recommending approval of their invoice number 1179 in the amount of $129,565.
All right, you've heard the recommendation of our engineer to pay Compo and Sons, invoice 1179, the amount of $129,565. Moved by Matt, second by Brett. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
Okay, the next project is the Sea South flood side repairs. This project was awarded last month to Compo and Sons. They started working on a ramp across the levee. This is where the main levee, the South Lafourche Levee District, ties into the Apache Form levee, which is organic to the Gulf levee that goes off page to the right. So right now, the contractor's working on that. They're going to be starting a haul on this end, actually filling in the flood side where we're going to move all the hot debris earlier in the year. Next project is the Rose Flood Wall Vessel Impact Barrier. This is along the intercoastal flood wall from the 308 overpass going all the way back to the old Mercer Boat Launch. That project was awarded last month to the low bidder, Lowland Construction.
Contracts have all been processed, and we're currently scheduling the pre-construction meeting to get this kicked off.
Here, this is, material we're getting from the Chapel 11 district. Is there any way we can incorporate that in?
We're looking at that, and that would be a pretty significant change order. Wendell and Nick and I did discuss some of those items. We did put together an inventory list of everything Carolyn has. I think Nick went out and looked at it, I went out and looked at it also on a separate occasion. It may not be the best use for that material. I think the contractor would probably charge us more to be able to deal with that. We're looking at some blasting and coating issues we have to address. So I do think that material is something to consider for other projects. Probably not the best thing for this. It's gonna end up most likely adding some additional cost to the project. So I think that the timber is still the most economical way to go for this. And last project I have to report on is the Section F berm improvement. We did take bids on that on August 17th. We're recommending awarding the base bid plus alternate 1 and 2 to the low bidder, Sea Level Construction, for $3,278,530. We did receive 4 bids on that project. 3 bids were very close, 3.28 million, 3.48 million, and 3.32 million. And we have a 4th bidder about 5 million. So I think that's a very competitive bids. This is actually a little under our estimate of about 3.5 million. So we're recommending awarding base bid plus alternate 1 and 2 to Sea Level Construction.
Okay, you've heard the recommendation of engineers, accept the bid from Sea Level Construction. Moved by Mr. Ronald, second by Mr. Rowland. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passed.
I got a question.
Yes, sir.
How long has that barrier been up? The barrier, 5 years, 4 years? That way?
That flood wall?
Yeah.
We built it in, this was finished in 2017,
Yeah.
2016, 2017.
So, and we've never had a boat hit,
We've never had
nothing there, and we're gonna spend $1 million on wooden pilings for what, a mile?
Okay.
To say, hold on. I know your story that you told me, it's about the core and it's all to protect them. I know that's, but I'm just asking, we're gonna spend $1 million to put some pilings that's gonna, have you ever seen some pilings stay up in it, that boats hitting 10 knots in the intercourse? They're not gonna stay up, I can tell you that right now. And not a boat hit since 17, a boat not hit. So now we need to do this project. It's been on pilings, not steel pilings, that's gonna stay there. I think it's a waste. I know this story when we've had the discussion, so. I'm just saying, realize that when you pass over the bridge,
I just said we needed the wall. That was critical to have the wall where they got it. And so that was the deal for the cut. Because sometimes Gary Graves hates the core because the core forces you into these deals that you don't like so much. You know, yeah, you're right, you feel like you're wasting some money. But just so that you know though, or either, or the floating docks from west, did go quite
yeah,
some
you got 3 feet, and you had 6 feet of water, sir.
So what you,
Yeah.
what you talk about, you got some big boards that do have a little beak.
Have a rake, it's not a beak, it's a bird that has a beak.
Whatever.
Rake.
You know better than that.
I'm just saying.
Same theory, you don't need the levee unless the water comes up.
That's right.
Yeah,
Only time we need it, we won't make do. It's something we have to do.
I just think it's a lot of money for something that really it's.
I don't think anybody disagrees with me.
Right, I mean, I'm just saying, it's a lot of money. And then, do we know how far we gotta put the pilings? Did they say on our, what we got, 50 feet?
They didn't dictate that to us, they left that up to us for this honor. So what we tried to do, which I totally agree with you, is this is some excess that we're doing in part to pacify the original agreement with the Corps.
And they said that's gonna be good if we put those pilings?
They have,
That's,
so, yeah, we got.
accepted.
But, part of what we're doing too does have some benefit. I do believe that, it does stand a very good chance at stopping an impact. Will it stop everything? Probably not. But it at least pacifies the Corps and gets us to a point where, if we do look at getting this accepted back into the system, I think we've got a pretty good leg to stand on. And I do think it gives us some protection in the,
Just
it's not gonna be perfect, but.
They gave us a 408, like, you know, we asked for 408, and then they haven't given us any 408s, okay, it's been 5 years. On that one, I'll call you about the 408.
Yeah.
They gave it immediately.
Yeah, so it's up to the court, does, I'm gonna read all the barriers, on having protection of them.
And how much rocks would be, did y'all try rocks, just the price?
We did look at it, but the problem is we couldn't make it work geotechnically, the way we making it work, and the way Ford made it work from 308 to the Lafourche Ridge, because the land drops a lot as you go towards the reservoir along, so that stick up is a lot bigger, and those rocks are a lot more weight against that wall on the side, that we don't want any additional weight.
But the course stopped or they stopped.
That's why they stopped.
That's what he said.
Because it was getting-
They said,
it's
you
getting
weigh the
too
rocks
much.
unwind the wall itself.
Now,
But
this
they just quit, that's what's crazy, they just quit.
Yeah, they just stopped.
And say, here y'all go now.
They just stopped.
this one wall is part of the Morganza to the Gulf alignment, so
Well, yeah, so that's not.
when they come to address Morganza,
They're gonna go do it.
we don't
up
want
to 16 feet, right? Which
Right.
they're gonna do what next year, I'm sure, right?
Okay. Thank you.
Well taken, Mitch. Thank you for understanding what you get.
I look at that and I'm like,
Yeah.
I can't wait to see in there and see all the pollen knocked down. What happened?
And at that point, if they say we need it, they'd be there nickel.
Oh, yeah.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
It's recorded out.
Delta Coast, anyone here from Delta Coast? Also. Sir, all right.
Good to see everyone. I'm Jeremy Perkins for the All South. I only have a few updates for the Golden Meadow Terrace. The project is still on hold, pending funding. For the Reach Cave Terrace repairs, FEMA has granted an extension to do the work, and so we just need to get on to the engineering and design portion of that project. And lastly, I have the Hurricane Ida response. I have Grand Bayou debris removal. That project has not been obligated by FEMA just yet, but we routed the paperwork over to them. And so the next, the next step would be the PW or the project worksheet formulation for that. And the reimbursement amount would be approximately $2 million. That's all that I have. Any questions?
Appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, moving on. Legal permit, right away, Jenny.
That is fun.
Board attorney? Got it. Okay. Finance committee, Mike?
Okay, Mr. President, as the board heard the review of the finance, the general budget, the manager, asking if you have any questions, no questions, so the finance committee approved and like to adopt the budget as presented.
Okay, you've heard a recommendation of our finance committee. Moved by Bonnie, second by Mr. Ronald. All in favor? Opposed? Motion passed.
And one of the things, like to approve all invoices that are approved as presented.
Okay, moved by Max, second by Brett. All in favor? Opposed? Motion carried. All right, personnel committee.
That way I'm not doing it.
Okay, any old business? Any old business?
I have one to bring up.
Go ahead.
Thank you. I wanted to clarify the material stockpile. We took quotes and doing 12,750 was the low base bid. We did have two alternates of 22,500 each. To stay under the quotes, we can only award one. So I'm going to make sure y'all want to award that one as well. Yeah. The alternate.
Based on one.
So based on all the recommendation.
We went over quotes to do the additional material stockpile by D North, where Outer Limits has just finished that project, to continue to get all the way to the fence so if we did both alternates, it would be over 250. So the recommendation was to award the base and the one alternate. So, I mean, I don't know, Ryan, I don't know if you think we would need to do a separate recommend. If the motion was to award the quote based on the recommendation of the engineer, and that was the recommendation of the engineer.
Do you have a, I mean, does GIS have a provision that's all in one or two?
All three in one.
So just clarify the vote and have a revote.
So that would be a clarification that we would, for that material stockpile quote, to
Base bid plus alternate
base and
one,
alternate.
which should total 234,800, correct?
234,800. 0 cents.
That's like doing MIT or something.
Okay, you've heard the recommendation of the engineer, and I'll give the manager, to accept that. Bid with alternate one. I'm moved by Mac, second by Mr. Ronald, all in favor? Opposed? Next carry.
Thanks, John.
Any new business?
Mr. King,
Yes.
at the executive committee meeting, you recommended that we turn on the equipment, you purchase the new equipment
To the equipment committee, right, yeah.
okay, I wanted to, sound like that we have that meeting, that prior to our, or after our executive committee meeting, whichever is more convenient.
Okay, Joe?
I think back to old business, the wall construction where the elevated highway goes over, project completed, closed, are we, what engineering firm was working with Neil?
Is,
Was the status is complete, Neil?
Yeah, which project is that, Joe?
Where the elevated highway goes over the levee.
The T1,
Any end of project surprises or anything anything that was not, no, that's not, everything was taken care of, there was no significant change orders? No?
it looked great, it looked great.
Geotech, the way everything performed, the depths and all of that? Should perform as advertised, right? And James Construction's happy, and no slowing down of the elevated project or anything due to that construction work.
Right, everything was, I had some concerns early on, Joe, but it really looks like they got it together, so.
Good. That's what I needed to hear. Thank you.
Okay, back to any new business, no new business?
I did want to call on Wendell had an announcement about upcoming.
Yeah, can you find the video? You got it. Well, it's October 1st, is gonna be the 103rd anniversary of Michigan Hurricane. Tom Golden Medal had put do a memorial that day. And just a little 5-minute video.
Let's see.
Perfect sound.
Dieu veut chanter les bons, ça va pleurer. Mon Dieu, de nous sauver, pas nous déployer. Dans
at 12:30 on October 1st at the Cheyenne Cemetery. Then they're gonna move from that cemetery to the cemetery of Grand Island. Then they're gonna have a ceremony and a service at the church. And then, after that, they're gonna have a reception at about 3 o'clock, about 4:30, with some food and some music, and, just gonna celebrate it. And the reason you do that is, that storm killed half the population. I tell you, it was, we had people not walking around today because that storm did what it did. People, again, the survivors all the way from Western Terrebonne to West Rigo, and, it's just important to remember that and this storm was very close from, you don't have the exact meteorology, but it was very close to Iowa. And they pushed a 16-foot storm surge over there. We had 16 feet up against our levee over here. And it's almost like full circle. The survivors of the storm and their descendants up here, the majority of us are related one way or another to that. And we didn't lose one life. Not one life. But the bottom line was, our people should have left that storm. That's the other lesson. Can't take a chance. When you get that type of force around, it's luck when you survive if things don't hold up. And so the event's going to be there October 1st. We did the Centennial. It was a 3-day event. I have to try to remember. And the reason we did it is our grandfather told me the story, and everybody used to tell the story. And people don't tell the story as much. You need to keep on telling the story. Because this is not Bangladesh that I'm talking about at that time. So again, the town's going to put it on. There's a monument to the people that we put together with the Centennial. I don't know if it's granite or water, but every storm it gets knocked out, and the town puts it back up. So we're gonna get some engineering done to make it survive that storm. But anyway, that's a good. We also commemorate that.
Freedom.
Remembrance.
Right, them engineers, you
Yeah.
would have read out all the talk, right?
Our family was in Chenier. After the Chenier hurricane, they moved to Levee. The hurricane destroyed them in Levee, that's when they moved to go to the valley.
Yeah, and that's a story for those families.
Yeah.
I had seven of my 8 great-grandparents by Cheyenne. 4 of my 5 grandparents grew up in Newville. And then my mom would go with them and guide them to go. And at that retreat, and the sad part is the gold followers over here. And they just have to build this legacy. But again, it's a story that affects all of us over here. Again, the town of Golden is going to put it on again on October 1st. And when we did Centennial, the anniversary, the first was on Friday. But today, for this celebration, it's on the Sunday, and the storm actually hit on the Sunday, in 1893. Everybody's invited, and again, the town of Grand Island is putting that on sponsor. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Attorney, any need for executive session? All right, entertain a motion. I'll move. Moved by Mr. Ronald, second by Monty. All in favor?
Aye.
We done.
Good.